Hear ye, hear ye. Court is now in session. Bailiff, bring me my first case.
May it please the court, I bring forth a tale of a party beaten down by an obsession. We do fun little one-offs for different holidays, and Christmas was no different. The day of the game, 3 out of 6 of our party decided not to show. I don't fully judge them, as their reasons were their own. This wouldn't have been a problem, but our DM did not scale down the encounters to match the smaller group. Most of the game was manageable, albeit very difficult, ending with Santa delivering us a TPK. I'm not really mad, but I am frustrated at the DM and at the others for not showing. Who is the at-fault party here?
Well, you mentioned 6 party members, so everyone say it with me. Cut down the party. That's right. It shouldn't be that many people. So, yeah. But to answer your question, who's at fault? I believe that the only person who could be at fault in this situation would be the GM, technically. Rebalancing encounters really is kind of annoying. I obviously don't know the stat block that Santa used. I don't know if it was a custom stat block or if the GM repurposed other creatures' stat blocks to match Santa's aesthetic. If it was the first one, I can understand I can understand it. I don't accept it, but I can understand the GM's lack of desire to find a replacement. Just because, well, this is the Santa block. It just makes sense. But for me, that's just kind of laziness, which kind of goes into the second part as well. If it was a reflavored stat block, then, well, they could have easily found another one. There's enough resources nowadays to where changing a stat block and rebalancing encounters, while annoying 100%, can be done almost on the fly, or requiring a 15-minute break or whatever. There is no reason why the GM shouldn't have been able to rebalance this encounter to appropriately match the party, especially since it was the end of the encounter. I could understand maybe if the 3 party members last minute let the GM know that they weren't attending. Perhaps there was not enough time for the first encounter or whatever to be rebalanced, but every subsequent encounter probably should have been balanced a bit more, to the point where then the last one was completely, appropriate without any issue. So the DM is at fault. The players are also at fault. You all are, because 6 is too many. And because scheduling should have been discussed beforehand, and, this should have been buttoned up in view of who could attend or not. I obviously understand last minute cancellations or sudden absences, as everyone has done in the past, myself included. But 3 of them suddenly doing it means that to me, that the communications for scheduling wasn't done well enough as a whole. So I'm going to answer the question, who's at fault? I guess I find the GM guilty. On a social level, I find you guilty. Just because, you sound salty unnecessarily. It's a Christmas one-shot where you died to Santa Claus. I think that's hilarious. I think it's fine and doesn't matter. So I want to punish both you and the DM. The DM I'm going to punish honestly, I'm going to reward the DM in having to get rid of those 3 players. There you go. Now you won't have to worry about balancing issues again because you have a set number of people. For you, I'm going to punish you by having to dress up as a mall Santa for this holiday season. without pay, of course, because Santa wouldn't take pay, right? Santa's all about the holly jolly spirit and murdering adventurers. Thank you, bailiff. Make sure to clean up all the fur. Bring me my second case.
May it please the court, I present the case of Squidgy the Betrayed, a tale of a wasted golden opportunity. I had wanted to give my players a cute mascot, but I also wanted to give them some agency in what kind of creature they would get. Thus I added a font that would animate one object they put in it. If they put some water, they would get a tiny water golem, a dagger, and they would get an animated weapon. If they put in some gold, they would get the tiniest, cutest treasure golem. Well, when my players encountered the font, our rogue with the archaeologist background pissed in the basin. It was after a lengthy pause that I described the acrid smell and the yellow bubbling mass that emerged. Attempting to salvage the situation, I gave my cutest squidges and squelches to try to endear this urine mistake to the party. However, in the next room the party used Squidgy to intentionally trigger a trap. He went stoically, he went bravely, and he died. Your honors, do I have the right to be upset at my players for pissing all over my ideas?
This would obviously depend on the dynamic of the group. However, I can say first and foremost, that's some childish ass shit. It coming from a rogue, I find very funny and appropriate. As someone who mains rogue, I understand the type of player that rogue attracts on like a grand environment sort of way. So I find that very funny. But yeah, that's some childish ass shit where I believe you are within your right to be very upset with what your party did. I know your party, or I should say, I know that parties sometimes, aren't easy to read, or sometimes, we'll make jokes of your characters or whatever, give them nicknames, or fall in love with an NPC that they're not supposed to. But this seems like a bit extreme to me, and based on your reaction, I can't imagine that this is like a common thing that they would do. So, or a common way that they would act. So, it being out of, turn for the player / group, and it being so drastic to this gift that you were giving them, especially when a lot of people play D&D, they love having pets or little companions, like I said, befriending an NPC or something. Now, I think you're fully within your right to be upset about this. This needs to be a conversation between you and the rogue, but preferably just you and the party as a whole. It's disrespectful to you as the GM. You put a lot of time and effort and stuff, and again, assuming this isn't just usual for them on how to act, then this was just unnecessarily cruel towards you and the effort that you were putting in. So I'm going to find the rogue guilty, of course. All of the players kind of ruined the situation. But I'm going to find the rogue guilty for being the pisser in this situation. And I'm going to sentence them to having to run into a bunch of horrible traps intentionally for the party until they are brutally killed by, a pit trap or a poison dart or something. And now we need a mop for the honey. Bailiff, bring me my third, preferably not messy case.
Your Honor, I present the case of slander, theft and potential coercion by player unto and toward another player. May it please the court. The other night my table and I were playing Curse of Strahd with a table of 5, myself a player. Our group can play in person because we are all roommates. A party member and my character are good friends and tend to roleplay gambling with each other through very short games of Farkle over disputes between us. We play only one turn and very quietly to avoid distracting. We never last more than a minute. During the story point, The party was on their way to speak to a quest NPC, and he and I bickered like the idiots we were over something until we decided to play over it. We rolled very quick and quietly while the rest of the party spoke to the quest NPC. A very important piece of story was dropped on the party and we both in and out of game did not hear. The other two party members got super mad at us for not hearing it, took our dice, and angrily told us that we shouldn't gamble between each other because it doesn't have anything to do with the story and we'll miss dialogue and they don't want to keep catching us up over things we miss. This was the only time we missed anything. We understand that our games may still be a little distracting despite our efforts, but we are both very respectful to the DM during exposition and most dialogue, and I myself am the party's best/only note-taker, so it struck me as very odd and unfair that the reason the rest of the party was so angry was because we were doing something that distracted us from important info and because it didn't pertain to the main game. My friend and I decided to just flip a coin from now on. But it sort of sucks because it takes away from the gambling aspect of our characters. I'd like to hear your view on this. Should we stick with the coin to keep us focused and from distracting the table? Or do you think us playing our characters to this degree and doing so as respectfully as we can is fair? Thank you for your time.
Be careful, plaintiff. Your bias is showing quite a bit in this story recap, or case description, I should say. You mentioned that you're the only storyteller, that you haven't missed other situations, that you're very, in caps, respectful to the DM. While I cannot confirm or deny if these things are true, I don't know if any of the other players are taking notes. I imagine that they are. Maybe not to the extent of which you are, but I'm assuming that they are, at least minimally. Maybe that's all they need to remember something, right? Not everybody takes notes in the exact same way. Some people are visual, for example. I know I am. So my notes tend to be pretty sparse, but have some sort of pictures in them. Stuff like that. Even as a GM, my notes are pretty sparse. So I don't know if that's the case, if they really are, I don't know, lesser or whatever you're trying to get across, but you are taking time to play a round of Farkle, which I looked up, which is a point scoring game. So where you roll some dice and then you score the number of which you roll. There's more to it, but I wasn't going to read extensively what it was, because it doesn't really matter what it was. What matters is that you are doing it. I agree that you and your party member having this little interaction is cute, and that it is good story development, and it's good for party morale even. However, the DM should be taking those moments to pause what's going on to allow this thing to happen. Which brings me back to the game that it is. You shouldn't be playing like a full round of a real game. You shouldn't be playing a full round of Farkle or Blackjack or anything like that. Anything that takes an extensive amount of excess thinking. Because now you have a point system involved. Now you have, right, which just adds an extra step. It should just be like, I rolled over, or in this case, flipping a coin, which is what was settled on, which I think is way better. I think, does it take something away? No, there's still gambling. And if you don't want to flip a coin because it feels like one of you doesn't have agency in it or whatever, then do the high roll. Or switch it up and do low roll. But don't add a point system. Don't add an extra step. Something that takes 10 seconds, not something that takes, quote unquote, less than a minute. It shouldn't take a minute. And I'm on the side of your party member who, just because this is the first time they've pointed out that you've missed something, this is not the only time that you've missed. Sure, you've probably missed something minor in the past where it didn't matter, and this one really did, but you have missed things. A round of a game is distracting. A round of blackjack is distracting. Playing dominoes in the middle of Dungeons and Dragons is distracting. Whatever it is, it's distracting. And you lost sentences or entire conversations to this game, which is unfair to the DM even, and unfair to those players. Like I said, I think you folks deserve this little cute, nuanced situation where you are interacting and you get to gamble and have a little mini rivalry. And the DM could be like, hey, you two are bickering in the middle of this conversation. I roll, who won? Haha, that's funny. Even then, that might get tiring. I don't know. But I think it's fine. I think, like I said, I think that's cute in my opinion. And unless the players started complaining about the time that it took, I would still allow it. And if the players are starting to complain about it, well then, I don't know. If it's disrupting the table as a whole, then you kind of are the problem. So, switching it to a easier, quicker flip the coin or high roll, low roll is, in my opinion, correct. And then seeing where it goes from there. And then if eventually it has to go away entirely, maybe you just aren't made for this table, or the table isn't made for you, or this character isn't made for the table, etc. So to some degree, I think you folks can keep playing. Quote unquote, doing it as respectfully as you can. Again, kind of bias showing there. You should incorporate the DM, or the DM should incorporate you, where it doesn't require respectfulness. Because respectfulness would indicate some sort of disruption. It should require cohesion of putting these two things together. Hey, you two are bickering on the way to the town hall. High roll. Quick, cute, over. Or you're bickering during this monologue. Depending on what that monologue is, obviously. Maybe you pause and wait to the end, and retroactively that's what would happen in the moment, something like that. So yes, I think you folks can still keep playing. However, I very much think you are guilty, and so is the player who is participating in this game. I think the DM is maybe being too kind by letting it continue the way that it did without mentioning something, because obviously it was building up in the other players. So, it could have been a slight failure on the DM's part to not ask how the other players felt about it, or to not listen to their, words if they were, begging the DM to stop this. But yeah, so I think the other players have a right to be upset of you doing something else while people are playing D&D. I think the DM has the right to allow you to do it, but also has failed in not stopping the other players from getting upset about it, or trying to find a solution prior to that. Because, usually you can read when something is frustrating someone else. So, I find you guilty. Not horrendously so, but still. So, based on that, based on you two gambling, I'm going to sentence you to having to since you're playing Curse of Strahd, I'm gonna have you have to challenge Strahd himself to a round of high roll, low roll, and the loser gets hit by the winner for free. I think that's very funny. You'll either take a very hard hit in the final conclusive fight, or you'll just get a free hit on Strahd, which I think is also funny because, again, you've done something wrong, but it wasn't egregious, and it still has room to be fixed.
You've got garlic in your soul.
I'm just saying all life has value. You don't know what he's capable of feeling.
I talk better, I walk better, my shoes fit me better, I get paid more than you, my crew with me.